My wife has extremely sensitive skin and she has always struggled with it. I've never cared about her having acne despite her being really insecure about it. She has seen countless dermatologists and other professionals trying to get rid of it to no avail. We have a small drying rack thing for a cleaning sponge in our bathroom. It's where a square cleaning sponge is kept and it's used to quickly clean the counters and mirrors if needed. Pretty handy, right? My wife got it for us. She is so awesome coming up with these things. Well, I was in the bathroom today and saw that my wife had bought a new cleaning sponge. But it was a super weird egg-shaped sponge. I found this egg sponge hilarious and asked my wife why she would get such a weird shaped sponge and not just a normal square one. She told me it would be easier to use than the old one to put makeup on. What? My wife uses our cleaning sponge for makeup? I don't understand. She saw the confusion on my face and asked me what's wrong. I asked her why she would use our cleaning sponge for her face. I don't know anything about makeup. Did you know that people who wear makeup use a sponge to spread the makeup on their face? Well, I didn't. But now I do. My wife made sure to explain that to me very carefully. I had used my wife's makeup sponge for cleaning. She used that same sponge on her face and we believe that that's the reason for her reoccurring acne. The wife is not happy and I feel horrible. I asked her why was it on a drying rack and not in her makeup bag. To let it dry out after use, obviously. She didn't want any bacteria growing on the moist sponge, which could happen if she left it in her bag. Great thinking. If only I didn't make it a nest for bacteria by cleaning with it. I went out and bought her a bunch of new sponges, all different shapes and sizes, but not the square ones. I hope she can forgive my dumbass soon. TLDR, my wife has acne she can't get rid of. I had accidentally used her makeup sponge to clean the bathroom for years. She has used that same sponge on her face and we believe that has caused her acne. I am an idiot. Edit. Thank you everyone for the skincare advice and kind words. I'll be sure to tell my wife about it all. I'm definitely going to have to buy more than just sponges for her, so thanks for all the suggestions too. To answer a few questions that keep getting asked, my wife likes her privacy while using the bathroom when she gets ready in the morning. She doesn't use makeup that often because apparently that's bad for her face. So I've never really seen her using her makeup sponge, or then I've been too absent-minded to notice. I guess I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. The makeup sponge I had mistaken as a cleaning sponge was a square one. They come in sheets and you just take one square piece out of it, honestly just like you would take out a cleaning sponge. That's the best explanation I have for them. I hope that makes it more clear. This interesting encounter happened to my father sometime in the mid-90s. My family is Malaysian and my father worked as a civil engineer, and still is. He led his company's hydro department and was responsible for contracting supplies for his turbine project. Looking for a supplier, a good college friend of his was the managing director of a turbine company based in Texas, and he personally invited my dad to meet and survey some products at his company there for his upcoming hydro project. Now the thing about my family, and most Malaysians in general, is that we are fluent in English. It's our second language. And with my dad studying engineering in Sunderland for 4 years, I could definitely say his English is way above others. So, my father and some of his employees took the trip from Kuala Lumpur to Houston, and the first thing they faced when entering the company's lobby was this American lady at the reception. She looked at my father's Asian complexion and condescendingly tried to take on a stereotypical Asian accent to attempt to communicate with him. My dad's co-workers behind him were all like, "Oh no she didn't," and were embracing themselves for the inevitable comeback at this racist remark. Then, my dad smugly decided to play along and conversed with her in Asian broken English for roughly 15 minutes, just to mess with her. Just as she was reaching her limit with him, the MD, her boss, came down to the lobby and enthusiastically greeted my dad from afar with, "Yo Opstad. You made it." My dad dropped the Asian act and returned his greeting out loud in completely fluent English. Confused and embarrassed, she became speechless and her face turned bright red in silence at the situation. The MD invites my dad upstairs to his office for the meeting, while my dad's workers were holding in their laughter as they followed him to the upstairs for the meeting. My dad later told his MD friend about the whole situation in the lobby, and the MD profusely apologized for her behavior, but my dad was a good sport and had fun messing with her. Later that month, my dad came back for another meeting and found out that the MD took no excuses from her and fired her that very same week for basically insulting their foreign customers on mobile device. So the usual blah, blah, blah. Was talking with an old boss that I used to work for. I'm at a different company now, but left on good terms, and remembered this background so people have a understanding. I drive semi, and at the time I worked for a dairy delivering milk and other products to grocery stores. All days were the same except for Saturday. On Saturday my last stop was a Walmart and I didn't like dealing with one of the people who checked in deliveries. They had 3 people who rotated being in charge on Saturday. So this happened early on a Saturday morning over Labor Day weekend in 2009. Because of the holiday weekend, stores took larger amounts than normal because of the holiday Monday. Everything went smoothly at first 3 stops, but the last didn't. When I arrived at the docks that normally had 1 or 2 open, there was a line of trucks waiting. I wasn't surprised and don't mind waiting, because I get paid for waiting. About a half hour later it was my turn to get a dock. So I backed in and then went inside to see the witch, as people called her. She was busy with a soda delivery and I went about collecting the empty crates and put on my trailer after pulling the incoming dairy to the trailer tail. Walmart loads of cooler or frozen items are temperature checked before being accepted. So you leave it on the trailer until they are ready to check your load in. So it's finally my turn to be checked in and I open the trailer door and start pulling their order out. Witch, put that back on your truck. I have beer and soda that need in first. Me, I'm not leaving until you check it or refuse it. Holding the invoice out to her. She signed and dated it, refused with no reason for refusing. I put everything back on and secured it. Then pulled off the dock and parked out of the way, then took a picture of the invoice and texted my boss it before calling her. Told her what happened, and I already know that store will be out of milk this afternoon. Boss, so it was never tempted? Me, correct. So when they call later looking for the milk, tell them it was refused for no reason and check the cameras. Boss, well, they are not getting any till Tuesday now. Don't worry, you're covered. So I took and put the product back into the plant cooler in good product return area. I didn't hear anything until Tuesday when I returned from that day's route. Boss, you were right, they ran out about 2 in the afternoon and called in a panic. Told them what happened and I'm not paying a driver double time to fix their mistake, and check the security cameras. So Saturday comes and I expect to be cussed both by the dock people and management of the Walmart because of last weekend's disaster. Instead I was greeted with smiles and thanks. The manager showed up also. It seems that was the mistake that he was waiting for to fire the witch. Not recent, but I typed it all out to tell the story to someone and thought I should share it with the wider world. I must have been about 10 or 11. I turn up to my local community hall for a musical competition. When I get there we are set into age groups. There's only one other guy in my age range, so I'm buzzing already at getting a medal, silver at the very least. He goes up, plays the piano and does a pretty good job. I go up. I play some violin. I mean, it's not great, but I was nervous and I got better as the nerves settled. He then goes up again. Plays the xylophone, of all instruments, and goes back to his seat. He gets first and second, leaving me with third. The worst part was going back home and telling my dad. When I told him I came third, he asked how many were in the competition. 3? Ha ha ha, no. To this day I still proudly have the medal on my bedroom wall in my parents' house. DL, drive. Entered a competition with one other person who could play 2 instruments better than my one. Me and my family would go on 3 to 5 day Thanksgiving cruises for vacation. You have the same waiter each night at dinner and they ask your name for a more personal experience. We had this awesome waiter, I can't remember his name unfortunately, but I do remember his awesome useless skill he taught us. He showed us how to push a plastic straw all the way through an apple. He then gave us 10 straws each and a few apples while our food was getting prepared. We were always excited to go to dinner each night and this made it much easier for my parents to deal with us. Fast forward 3 years and we do the same Thanksgiving cruise on the same boat as last time. We sit down at dinner and are looking in the menu, when we hear an upbeat but cautious tone, Mr. Mike. My dad, we all look up to see our waiter. We got the same waiter again and he remembered my dad's name. He even proved it by doing the apple trick for us. It was so crazy and made the experience that much better. You always think of the best responses to people after the fact. Sometimes, though, the proper response just slips out. This time it just did. So working a big box type store, you get all kinds of Karen-like people. We sold, as one category, ready-to-assemble furniture. Think Bush, O'Sullivan, solder office and home entertainment. The furniture pieces, sometimes, came in different colors. Oak wood grain, black, white, etc. Naturally people would ask if we sold the item in another color. So I get called to the furniture department in the following conversation. Me, hi, what can I help you with today? Karen, I want this furniture item, but I want it in black. Me, I'm sorry, we don't sell it in black. Karen, you don't? Does your other nearby store location have it? Fast FWDTH, are you me making phone call? Me, no they don't. Karen, so when will you get black back in? Me, don't expect to. We've never carried it in black. Karen, can you order it or can I get a rain check? Me, I can't rain check an item we don't carry. I also can't order it from my warehouse because they won't have it either, as we've never carried it in black. Karen, when will you start carrying it in black? Me, we may never carry it in black. If we do, I'll know when they ship it to me, but up to now we've never carried it in black. Karen, why do you keep saying that? Me, what? We've never carried it in black? Karen, yes. Why do you keep saying it? Me, 'cause it's true, and the truth sounds the same every time you say it. Karen, stares daggers. There was more inconsequential convo, but this was the important bit. Sorry if it was boring, but someone has to write the drivel that other stories rise above. Years ago as a teen I worked in a school uniform shop during summer holidays. I enjoyed working there and got on well with the bosses, so when they required cover for time outside of the holidays they would occasionally ask me to work, which was fine by me because it meant more money for me. 2007, I think it was about a month or so into the new school year starting, so September or start of October, and customer stormed up to me with her daughter trailing behind. Customer equals C. Me equals M. C, I want a refund on my daughter's pullover. I was going to wash it and found holes. It's awful quality. M, I'm sorry to hear that. What seems to be the problem? C, there are holes in the sleeves. School year has only just started and this is ridiculous, and the wool's unraveling and making holes already. M, righto, I'll just have a look at it to see what the issue is. It may be a manufacturer fault that we may need to keep note of for other customers experiencing the same issue. C, fine, proceeded to throw it on the counter. M, after inspecting, the jumper isn't unraveling. The holes look like they've been made deliberately due to the clean cut here. Could it be possible that your daughter has made the holes herself? I know that it's a bit of a trend to make thumb holes in jumpers given the placement of the holes. If that's the case, we can't offer a refund. C, how dare you accuse my daughter of doing that? You don't want to admit you buying cheap rubbish. M, I'm sorry to assume, but if you could look at your daughter's hoodie. C, turns round to see her daughter has her thumbs through the cuffs of her hoodie, turns her back to me. Did you do this to the pullover? The daughter nodded. C, grabs the jumper off the counter and storms out without looking at me or apologizing. I could hear her shouting as they walked down the street. I really loved working there, but some mothers were infuriating. I felt bad for a minute that the daughter would get punished, but that's not my problem. A spider nest in my roommate's bedroom hatched last night. There were so many little spiders spread out all over the ceiling, so I figured the best bet would be to open the window, spray some insect repellent and let them leave overnight. Wake up this morning, see they're still there, so I figure I'll just spray the ceiling and room with some Raid and we'd be good to go. I sprayed my way about halfway into the room when they dropped. It was like they waited till I was good and into the room and spraying away when they just all decided to just silently come down on webs like out of a horror movie and creepy crawl their little horrific asses all over me. In my face, in my hair. Bad day for a tank top. I can still feel them all over me. My own body hair keeps freaking me out and probably will for days. If I ever sleep again, I'm probably going to be reliving this nightmare in my nightmares for years to come. DL, drive. I sprayed bug killer on spiders that were on the ceiling thinking they would die stuck to the ceiling. They fell all over me instead. I'm a courtroom assistant in a Southeast Asian country. I'd rather not get much further than that on identifying information. We do both security and practical assistance like moving displays, escorting juries, and some ceremonial stuff as well. This was the sentencing of an evil flip on several high crime offenses, similar to what a capital offense may be in America. Here high crime is the level above criminal offense, or felony for the rest of the world. He stalked, kidnapped, raped, and murdered a locally famous and growing pop artist who was pregnant. He was charged with stalking, high crime kidnapping, high crime rape, high crime murder, high crime fetal homicide, and a bunch of other stuff. Evil Flip, as he will be referred to from here on out, was on suicide precautions as he made threats against his own life in prison, so he was in spiffy paper clothes. We were well into victim impact statements. The victim had a large family and there were something like 35 individuals addressing the court. We're something like 28 statements into it, Next up was Granddad. These are always really emotional, families are always really upset for good reason, but this 80-plus-old guy is the worst I can remember. He was crying, breathing heavily, shaking, the entire sentencing. He was called to make his statement, starts walking up, about past the counsel table. He then turns, tackles the attorneys and evil flip. He didn't get much in on the evil flip, maybe a kick and 2 punches before 15 of us pile up on him. He was taken into custody, and it quickly became apparent that evil flip got what was coming. Evil flip is screaming and gagging for about 20 seconds, then he starts convulsing, came back in about 2 minutes choking/gagging, really bad. We put him on his side and get an ambulance on the way. The rest of the gallery was evacuated and court went into recess. By time the ambulance arrives he's not breathing, only twitching and has no pulse. They do CPR, take him out to the hospital. He was revived and died later that day. Coroner's report said his brainstem was damaged, his skull was broken, and brain herniated through break in his skull. The granddad was interviewed by national police who have jurisdiction of courts. He said that he'd been planning that for days, he felt no remorse, said if he had time he would have killed the attorneys too. It also came out that the granddad was in my country's mob back in the day, had 40 years in prison prior for drowning someone in petrol and lighting their corpse on fire. He was suspected but not confirmed to be involved in several other high-profile murders. He was charged with murder, conspiracy, contempt of court, and 2x simple battery for the attorneys. He was found not guilty of everything except contempt of court, to which he was originally sentenced to 4 years but it was reduced to terminal probation with home confinement due to his health. Not quite. I don't work here, but I thought it was pretty close. I, 28F, am the manager of a firearms counter in a chain of stores. I fill out 4,473s and submit electronic background checks to the FBI every sale. One day, a woman came in looking to purchase a firearm. She was kind at the time and I helped her figure out her options. Once she settled on something, we started the paperwork. Once I submitted her background check it began to go into research mode. Which isn't always a good sign. Most people have a higher chance of being delayed. Especially with the pandemic going on. I explain that to her, she nods like she understands, and waits around during the research time. About 10 to 15 minutes later she comes back delayed. Which just means that they need more time to research her. The background checks are name-based, so if there is someone with the same name as you in a different state with a criminal sheet as long as the Nile is wide, they might need more time to research. I tell her that I check the delays twice a day and if she comes back before her Brady date, I'll call her. She agrees and leaves. This transpired on a Friday leading into a holiday weekend. Monday morning rolls around, I'm just opening up shop, and she calls asking about her background check. I check for her and say, nope, still hasn't come back yet, but we just came off of a holiday weekend so there may not have been enough people to research it. Lady, well, you're there now so just check it. Me, ma'am, I don't do the actual background checks, I just submit them. L, well who does the background checks? Me, the FBI. L, I'll just call them then. And hangs up. She wasn't outrightly rude about it, more frustrated with the situation. It gave me a good chuckle and relayed the story to my co-workers. Once her Brady date passed, I called her to let her know. She came in the next day on my day off to pick up her firearm and my co-workers said she was quite lovely. She didn't mention calling the FBI though. So throughout the day, me and a friend were exchanging memes we had on our phones. You see, I spend most of my free time on my computer, rarely on my phone, so I wasn't really responding very often, so I kinda forgot about the conversation when my younger sister asked if she could use it to watch YouTube. I let her then played games with my friends for a few hours, not really thinking about it. Well, around 3:30 a.m., I get off the game and see a notification from Facebook. You see, I had a screenshot on my phone of a girl I kinda like in a bra, which I took from her Instagram. Turns out my sister thought it would be funny if she spammed my friend pictures, one of them being the screenshot. My friend said, yo, why do you have a picture of girl's name /, to which I stupidly replied my sister must have took it. Since it's almost 4 in the morning, he hasn't read it yet, but I don't think he'll believe me. I have no idea how I'm ever going to recover from this. And #X200B. DL, doctor let my sister use my phone for YouTube, she sent a questionable screenshot I had to my friend. So I come from a Dutch background. I am nowhere near fluent in the language. But I know enough that I can pick up some words and understand a few sentences. So about 8 years ago, I was helping a customer needing some paint made. As I'm mixing it, her phone rings, and she answers it and begins speaking in Dutch. As she is talking, I can pick that she's telling whoever where they are, then they say something along the line of "I have one of these dumb young workers mixing it." I say nothing. I decided to wait for the right moment as I mix her paint, as she continues talking. When her paint is done, I hand her can of paint to her. She says thank you, and I say in Dutch "You're welcome. Goodbye." She froze, her mouth open, and then says "You speak Dutch?" I didn't want to let her on how little I actually knew, so I just simply said yup. She quickly darted for the cash area. It was very funny and rewarding. I'm 1 year postpartum and back down to almost pre-baby weight. I'm 5'7" and 130 pounds. Before I got pregnant I was 120 and personally thought I was too thin. I'm happy with the extra 10 pounds I have. Some of my overweight family has insisted I've starved myself back down to being thin because you can't possibly look like that only a year after having a baby. My response has always been "You're right, I've had to work for it because let's be real, it doesn't just come off by itself." That and I gained 80 pounds while pregnant. I hear a lot of shock when I say I have a 1-year-old child and a lot of "Wow, you don't look like you have a kid, thanks, but what am I supposed to look like?" And my personal favorite, because my son is huge, 2'8" and 24 pounds. "He couldn't have possibly came out of you." I guess responding with "Well, he didn't come out of the chute" was the wrong answer because I get hit with "You're so tiny, no wonder you had to have a C-section." Like my small frame must have failed me. Anyone else relate? It's like you have a child and it's more normal and acceptable to be overweight. This is a short one from when my youngest sister was 4 or 5 years old. So a bit of context, I was 5 when my sister was born. When I was growing up, with a few exceptions, I was an easy child and would listen to rules fairly well. My sister, not so much. She was a handful. This means that where my parents could say a rule to me, I would listen and obey it knowing what they meant. So my parents had a rule, just like most parents, about holding a hand when crossing the street. My sister didn't like this rule. She didn't like having to wait for everyone to get out of the car, stop talking, etc. So her little 4 to 5-year-old brain processed that the rule said a hand without specifying whose hand. One day she got out of the car, walked to the side of the road, held her left hand with her right hand, and started crossing the street. My parents thought it was hilarious but did tell her to hold one of their hands when crossing. Unfortunately, she didn't stop doing it until she pulled this stunt one day in front of a car and I had to run and pull her away. After that we would grab her hand as soon as she was out of the car and not let go until we were inside. I'm back with a story that better fits the malicious compliance, so I hope you all enjoy. In 8th grade I had a teacher I absolutely despised. We'll call her Mrs. H. Mrs. H should have never been a teacher in the first place. She really seemed to hate kids and would often throw tantrums when already apathetic preteens refused to take part in games she tried, and failed, to get us to play, including one time where she dressed up like Mark Twain and stormed out of the classroom and gave everyone a detention since no one played along. Mrs. H was the literature teacher, and from the beginning of the year we both seemed to rub each other the wrong way, and through the year our small spats escalated further and further, but I finally reached her breaking point when she assigned us persuasive essays. I was emotionally checked out of her class already, fully prepared to fail for the year and have to do summer school right before high school in my favorite subject, and was failing at attempts to be some badass emo kid, so embarrassing. So, I wrote my essay on why we shouldn't write persuasive essays. Big mistake. Mrs. H was fuming and gave me an in-school suspension and told me I had to write the essay again or she would fail me for the year. Ready to accept my fate, I rewrote my essay. The subject? Why Mrs. H shouldn't be a teacher. Before the end of the day I was in the principal's office with my mother, who had been called from work. Mrs. H is there too, and she pulls out the essay looking so smug to see me sitting there in trouble, and waits with that smile on her face while my mother reads the essay. My mother's only response was, "Huh, pretty good." Needless to say, I failed the class. She actually made me spend every period of her class for the rest of the year in school suspension, but it was still completely worth it. Vent post: so I work at a small town dive bar. There is a couple, Mr. X and Mrs. Y. They come in a few times a week, sometimes together, sometimes apart. Well, within the past week they decided to divorce. Each have come in separately a few times to drink and vent with different versions of the same story. Well, today Mrs. Y came in and after a few drink tells me she knows X was in here the other night and she wants to know what he's been saying about her. I believe bartenders should operate along the same lines as doctors and lawyers and not reveal what customers say to us to others. So of course I refused to tell her. She got upset and told me that she thought I was on her side. I then had to explain to her that I, as well as most bartenders, don't take sides. We're friendly to you, we like you, we'll occasionally even befriend you. But we don't take sides, we're impartial sounding boards who serve you drinks. I mean, if one of them had done something unspeakably cruel, I'd probably take a side, but you get the point. She understood, and I do feel bad. But also I had to be honest with her. At least she knows anything she says will stay between the two of us. My sister always has the best bedtime stories about my 3-year-old nephew. Tonight nephew had premeditated malicious compliance. So Bill puts nephew to bed and they're downstairs on the couch. All of a sudden they hear a little giggle behind them. He's out of bed. Of course. Sis asked him to go to bed numerous times and he just smiles at them. Sis says she will take the toys away he is holding if he doesn't listen. Nephew, this one, holds up helicopter. Sis, both of them. Nephew looks at both toys. Walks slowly towards sis and hands her both toys. Turns around and sits on the couch with the biggest grin on his face like he had just won the lottery. Very short little story. This happened to me yesterday, was rather wholesome and didn't involve a Karen, sorry to disappoint. And #X200B. I work as a courier for the major postal service in my country and drive around in a wide-load van to make deliveries. It's a rental and doesn't have any company markers down the sides. While walking up the driveway of a house to make a delivery, an older lady next door called out to me. And #X200B. OL, you know there's been a blackout, right? Me, not just in suburb we're in, but also in insert 4 other suburbs here. OL, oh, really? Well, you would know all about that. And #X200B. I then just continued my job and placed the delivery by the front door, knocked and went back to my van. As I was walking back down the driveway, the lady said. And #X200B. OL, you're not who I thought you were? Me, chucking a bit, have a nice day. And #X200B. It's my assumption that she saw a white van and a bloke in a generic fluoro shirt in the middle of a blackout and thought that they were an electrician. As I said, short, wholesome and no Karen. Enjoy your day, D. This happened moments ago and it's been a while since I've posted, so I figured this was as good a time as any. As security for a small hotel, the parking lot or just the lot is my primary area that I operate from. With the specter of COVID ever looming, there's been only a handful of guests staying here each night. Moments ago a car pulls in and takes the long way around the lot, raising the first turning flag. They proceed to park in the darkest possible spot in the entire parking lot. Another flag raised. Car shuts off. I light them up from a distance with my 1000+ lumen spotlight. The car starts up and slowly cruises by where I stood on the sidewalk watching. There's a young couple and the driver says something to me I can't understand. I explain property is closed. Are you renting rooms still? Yes, but please park closer to the building and not in one of the spots that is literally the darkest corner of the lot where people tend to park who are up to something. Indignant responses. Some sarcasm. Lovely people, I can tell. I mean, it's the depths of a pandemic, who else but finest of the best of the most respectful people are bothering to go out or stay in hotels right now. I direct them to the front desk and keyed inside so I didn't hover. Also didn't want them to know what car was mine. Saw them inside at the front desk. No masks, but they are staying here. Why they tried to park in a trouble spot is beyond me. I'd link my other post, but I'm fresh off a graveyard with another coming up, and the melatonin/CBD/indica wombo combo that is what this guy needs to sleep for more than 4 hours is kicking in. That couple that tripped my "why would you decide to park there?" that I wrote about? Something went south in about an hour as I got a radio call that EMS was on their way for room X. Don't know details. EMS showed up for about 15 minutes and left. I think the male got into the ambulance as I didn't see him again. They seemed a little strung out now that I think about it. Some other aspects of the night play into my theory that there was cocaine involved in whatever caused the EMS alarm. Later on I'll tell you all about the latest mystery that's plaguing my department, the sneaker drinker. I work at a small-town coffee shop that has managed to adapt and stay busy during COVID-19 by utilizing a window for walk-up service. A regular problematic customer, let's call him TJ, is a typical middle-aged man riddled with toxic masculinity. He often makes female employees and customers uncomfortable with his comments. Lately he's been around a lot, being typical DJ. Today he came to our window and ordered a coffee. Cool, nothing out of the ordinary. A co-worker asked him if he would like to tip via our Square register. We normally don't verbally ask customers, but with the current pandemic we are not allowing customers to touch our iPad system. He proceeded to tell her to put 100, and reassured them he wanted to tip that much because he appreciates our hard work and effort and wants to chip in since our business has been a bit slower. Okay, I gave him that and almost have a change of heart about DJ. We both outwardly thank him and he goes on his way. I text my boss about this uncharacteristic interaction with TJ, and through their end of the register system she was able to look at the transaction. They noticed that not only was the credit card he used not in his name, but in his boss's name, on their company card. Typical TJ. What a D-bag. A few years ago my father was urinating behind a tree in a small area of woodland just outside of the small town in which we live. He noticed a backpack on the floor behind another tree. Being naturally curious he searched the bag to try and identify an owner. Inside, amongst a small number of clothes was a wallet. Upon opening, he noted the driver's license had a photo of a young Asian man on it. The name on the license has escaped my memory, so for the purpose of this story I will refer to him as Adam Smith. Luckily also inside the wallet, there was a small card with his home address on it, presumably for situations exactly like this. Perplexed by this bag, my father decided the best thing to do was return it to the address on the card, which turned out to only be around 3 miles away. When he gets to the front door he is greeted by an older woman, who was around 60 years old. My father asked the woman, "Does anyone called Adam Smith live here?" Suddenly all of the color drained out of the woman's face. She shakily replied, "Adam has been dead for 5 years." Completely taken back by this, my father pulled out the driver's license to show the woman. She told him that the man on the photo was not Adam, who was her husband. She proceeded to show my father photos of Adam, who was an elderly white man with a beard. Both the woman and my father were totally shocked by this, and when my father showed her the rest of the contents of the bag, she identified some of the objects in there, for example, a pocket watch, that had belonged to her deceased husband. Adam Smith died of cancer and not under suspicious circumstances, and to this day no one knows why the bag was left in the woods and the true identity of the Asian man. I teach kindergarten, and this past year I had a student have a full temper tantrum for over an hour. She got mad because another student had participated in a fundraiser and was being taken to get a snow cone. I tried to explain this to her, but she was beyond listening. Out of 19 kids in my class she was the only one who had a fit about this. We have snack time and she didn't bring a snack, so I told her she could have goldfish that I have for kids who don't have a snack. She still wouldn't stop crying. She ended up not having snack. I emailed her mom with details about the situation and the response I got back was, "Oh, I'll send her with money for ice cream tomorrow." Why didn't she have snack? Why wouldn't you just give her the snow cone? I mean, I was this kid's third teacher because her mom refused to believe that her daughter needed help, which is a whole different story. What would y'all have done? I hate that phrase and its variants. That was used by one of my first customers of the day today after I specifically said what I was doing to help her. I think the reason was that it takes a day to get a reply from the specific team I was contacting, and she wanted a resolution right that minute. Anytime that I try to provide a customer with a resolution, I'm attempting to provide them with assistance. Whether they take that as helpful or not is up to them. Them not taking it does not make me unhelpful. Sorry, just needed to rant. Hi everyone, this will be a short rant lol. I just had a guest ask me for a rubber bath mat and I told him unfortunately we don't have one. The wife then jumped to say that he fell in a shower at another hotel, then the daughter chimes in and says, "Well, maybe your manager can go out and get one and bring it back." I said I can ask, and she immediately says that will be great. So who is rubber mats on deck for the elderly at their hotels? I mean, I've never had someone ask this because they normally just book accessible rooms. Honestly though, if you know you have fallen in the past at a hotel while traveling, it should be your own responsibility to carry one while staying in a place that isn't your home. This happened a couple years ago, but I will feel the stench upon it eternally. My 8-year-old is very nervous when it comes to her making friends. All of kindergarten she didn't seem to find anyone in her class interesting enough to want to hang out with. 2 years ago, think 1SD/2 ND grade, she made 2 friends that she hung out with during her recesses. All seemed well, she might be bringing kids over for sleepover soon. I was very excited for her. Well, one day she comes home just absolutely rustled. I asked her why she looked so frustrated. She explained to me that lately during recess, if she hangs out with Katie, we are going with that Haley would get super jealous and think she's not her friend anymore. I asked her if Katie acted the same way and she said no. So I talked with her about how it's common for friends to get jealous at their age, and that it's okay if she didn't want to hang out with both girls every recess. I told her there's nothing wrong with taking turns with your friends if you hanging out with both of them is the problem. She understood. Next day. What a shoot show. I asked her if she had a chance to talk to her friends and she said yes. She then proceeded to tell me that the reason Haley gets so jealous is because it seems like Katie's always the favorite. So then I said to my daughter, "Oh, so Katie and Haley are sisters?" "No. They're twins." I literally just gave my 8-year-old advice to pick one twin over the other. FML. And I get to feel the burn forever BC I myself am a twin. TL, Dr. Daughter had a hard time juggling friends, I told her to just pick one. They were twins. First time posting, currently a EMS dispatcher for a private ambulance company for 3 years now. We take some calls, however, they're usually seizures, psych, and falls. This one? Probably should have been psych, but unfortunately she wasn't the patient. This call happened in my first year, while I was pretty fresh and didn't understand the power of controlling a call. And #X200B. Me, okay, tell me exactly what happened. CLR, yeah, my mom fell in the other room, you know we have her locked in there right now, but yeah she fell and I think she may have hit her head. Me, okay, are you with her now? CLR, well, you see, she has dementia, and we live in a new home, so she is locked in there. You see, we can't have her wandering because of the bears that are around here. Me, have you gone to check on her yet? CLR, no, I can't unlock her door because she will get out and the bears will get her. Me, can you please go check on the patient? CLR, yeah, I think she might have hit her head, it sounded like she hit the end table, that's what woke me up, but even our big dog, insert large dog brand, is afraid to go outside because there are bears here at this new house. Please send the ambulance but make sure they get in and out quick because the bears will get them. Rinse and repeat for literally every one of the 10 questions involved with a fall. I was essentially working with a third-party caller as she flat out refused to unlock her mother from the room until the EMTs got there, let alone even go look at her. And #X200B. I kid you not, I heard way more about these bears than I ever got out of her regarding her fallen mother. While I may have wanted to bash my head into the desk repeatedly asking her the questions, now I can have a good belly laugh over it. From what I do remember though, Mom was transported alright, and no EMTs were mauled by the darn bears. First time poster, been lurking for a couple months. I've been reading this thread, amazed by the audacity of some people, but alas I live in Canada where most times people are apologetic when they mistake you, or you help them not realizing they thought you worked here. Lady, just watch Hamilton, suddenly big on commas. Warning, this story isn't that exciting or salacious. Anyways, I've been keeping myself locked up in my house because of COVID, only going on for things when I have to. I go to a North American, orange-signed big box hardware store. The plywood I want is on a high shelf, requires a forklift. I ask a staff member if they can get it down for me. He radios in for a forklift, and then blocks off the aisle with those extended gate type things. Cast. Me, self-explanatory me, wearing jeans, runners, a hat, and a t-shirt that is a version of Straight Outta Compton. RW, random woman. ME, standing by my cart, staring at my phone, waiting for them to bring the forklift. RW, how do we get out? ME, oh, I think you can just move that gate to the side and walk through. RW, looks at gate thingy, well is that where we're supposed to go? ME, I have absolutely no idea, but it's probably fine that you walk through and just close it when you get through. RW, takes a closer look at me, oh, I thought you worked here. ME, nope, just waiting to get my plywood. The end, totally Canadian story. But I do wonder, what about me made her assume I worked there, despite not wearing an orange apron like the actual staff? I'm a male POC, don't know if that played into it, I just looked at the actual staff, thought about what I was wearing, and have no idea why someone would confuse me for staff. Cheers! Okay, so a few things. This happened a few years ago. I worked for a certain grocery store and my wife worked for a different grocery store. She works at the store I do, in the same department. Her old store uniform was blue, and mine at the time was a blue t-shirt with store name. I'm on mobile. So while my wife was working for the other grocery store, I would usually come up for her lunch break before I went to work. She was delayed a bit, so I waited in the checkout lane that had trading cards in. Yes, I'm that kind of nerd. Some old guy comes up and asks if I'm gonna open the lane. I tell him I don't work there, I work for my company, and he walks away a bit grumpy. Not a long story, but the most directed story I have. I am friendly to the point where it's almost pestilent. I always wish my customers a good day. I make their food. I know their order before they even order it. I get their order ready and even warm it up. I was the one to stop suicides. I gave my time for and still got my job done. I got 2 of them jobs. When they don't have the funds to pay, I pitch in that last $1 to $5 out of my own paycheck. I'm the one to give out masks on request. Me and 2 other coworkers are the only ones to wear them a whole shift. Fred the homeless and their dogs, give out drinks on hot ER days and people that honestly deserve them. EMS, nurses, cops and firefighters. Just 2 days ago I treated a homeless man's sores and told him how to properly dress them. For free. My supplies, my money, I'm the one to put my future on hold to provide everyone's immediate needs. I'm the only one to actually take extensive care of my customers. How TF am I the one getting all the complaints? I shouldn't be the few not trusted by management and other co-workers. I'm the only one doing my job and more. Covering shifts. Breaking into cars when customers leave their keys inside. Taking care of my customers so well, I have alarms for when they come in and what to get for them. Who TF does that? Why am I the one losing the only shift I excelled at? I did more than I was supposed to, but no one will ever see it. It's been over 10 years since authorities found nearly a dozen bodies along the south shore of Long Island while searching for a missing escort named Shannon Gilbert, and the killer or killers have never been found. Most of these bodies date back as far as the early 2000s, so for over 10 years this strip of beach has been a dumping ground for a serial killer. I honestly have nothing to add to this, but this story has always stuck with me. I was 12 when it first broke, and since then I've been keeping tabs, seeing if anything new has come up. A little over 2 months ago Jane Doe number 6 was identified as Valerie Mack. The thought there's still 3 more bodies to be identified is crazy to me, adding in that one of them is a baby. Reading this over it sounds like a tangent, but this really has been stuck with me since I was a little kid. Stumbling onto a serial killer's stomping ground and finding all his victims is unbelievable to me. Adding in the fact that they were never caught, I believe that if they have the ability to, they are still killing, just like any addict. It's an itch they need to scratch. I'd like to end this by linking the collection of articles on one of the victims named Jessica Taylor. She was another escort/prostitute in Brooklyn who was murdered by the Long Island Killer in 2003. Hands and head were found in an abandoned building, plus the body of a random guy whose face was slashed by a machete. For nearly a decade nobody knew who did it or where the rest of her body was, until in 2011 when they found her remains on that same stretch of beach in Long Island as another victim of the Long Island Killer. Questions to you all though: do you think the cutting on the heads and burying the bodies on the beach is symbolic or something, cause they did the same thing to a few other victims? Also, do you believe they're still out there killing? Jessica Taylor. This FU actually happened about a week ago. For a little bit of background, I get mild hay fever that comes each summer. The symptoms aren't always exactly the same, but I'd usually just have a few weeks of sneezing before it went away. About a month ago, I'd realized that this year one of my symptoms was a sore throat, which was weird as I'd never had this with it before. More on this later. I've never liked sneezing everywhere and never really liked sneezing into my hand either. It just seemed kinda disgusting. I know we now have the COVID elbow cough, but it had never occurred to me to sneeze like that. So as a kid, I realized you can just hold your sneezes in, and so for the past 20 years or so, I'm now 33, I've been stifling my sneezes by pinching my nose and holding it. This worked out pretty well for me for the most part. I don't spray slime everywhere, and I don't have to worry about breaking the silence at awkward moments like in the middle of my friend's golf swing. Very occasionally the seal of my lips would break from the pressure and make a noise like a baby elephant, but that was kinda hilarious. Here's the actual flip up. I stifled a particularly big sneeze and felt something in my throat just pop. Pain shot through my windpipe around my Adam's apple, and suddenly I couldn't speak more than a whisper. I realized that something had gone very wrong. Over the next few hours it came back slightly, but I realized that my voice had lost the ability to talk at certain pitches and I couldn't speak louder than a quiet speaking voice. My ongoing problem is that stifling sneezes has become such a reflex that I actually go to pinch my nose whenever I feel a sneeze coming. I accidentally stifled another sneeze about a day later and had a very painful half hour after. I've also realized what this weird ongoing sore throat was. The sneezes had been stretching and tearing my throat to make it sore as this week when I've sneezed normally my actual throat around my tonsils feels fine. A week on and although it's improved a bit, I still can't raise my voice and have still several tones in my voice that don't work properly. My Adam's apple is still sore and feels bruised. My wife's family are all medical doctors and had never heard of anything like this, but I did find out about some guy in the UK who did the same thing his whole life and eventually exploded a hole in his windpipe. He had to be fed through a tube for a week to let it heal. Apparently he made a full recovery, but I'm not sure if he had any voice damage. Has this happened to anyone before? Is my voice foobar now? TL, Doctor, I have been pinching my nose when I sneeze for my whole life and on one occasion my voice box exploded from the pressure. Permanent voice damage TBD. I became friends with this person half a decade ago. Since then we've spent most of our time together. We've traveled to all four corners of America together, we've seen each other flip up, we've seen each other at each other's ugliest and most beautiful moments in this time. We get along too perfectly. Her anger and rage, her rational and irrational actions I'm able to carry and deal with. Her heart is as big as the moon and her mind is as sharp as a razor. She is as beautiful as the sun rising out of the South Pacific. Her voice is as beautiful as the drive down the 101 in the fall. But there's one catch: we're in a business together that strictly forbids nepotism, and she is dating one of our business's strongest allies. This week we went south to vacation together with her mom and their family friends. We shared a tent for this week, and I'm used to sleeping next to her, but it's never ever been awkward because we are friends first and foremost, and she's never suspected me of having feelings for her until last night. We had spent the day on the lake, laughing, singing, drinking. After everyone was in bed it was just us tending the fire and talking. She took me out to a clearing and we were watching the stars. We were talking about love, about relationships, about friendship. I asked her how she felt about our friendship, how she felt about me. She said, "You like me, don't you? I'm not dumb." And I told her the truth. She froze, like a deer caught in front of a semi, and started asking about moments we'd spent together, if the times I told her I loved her before meant more than what she thought. She asked when I first fell in love with her. I tried to explain to her that just having her in my life was enough, that being her friend was the most important thing to me, and that while I loved her, having her around was more important. Having her trust and friendship was more satisfying than any chaotic affair. We crawled back into the tent, our hearts beating 1,000 miles an hour. Finally I just broke and asked her if we could cuddle. She said yes, but that she wanted to be Big Spoon. She wrapped me in her arms, grabbed my wrist and put her head on my back. I took her hand in mine. Again it was like she'd been hit by lightning. She started crying, asking why I'd taken her hand, telling me she'd have to tell her boyfriend about all of this. This morning, we acted like nothing has changed. She's been chill, but I'm stressed. I'm supposed to move in with him into artist housing at the beginning of next month. So. DL, Doctor, I flipped up my life by coming clean to my best friend that I love her deeply. Not murder/crime related. First time posting, but I'm a big fan of this community. This is a story written from a personal account but has been publicly covered by the media internationally. I only briefly scanned the published articles online, so I am mostly basing this on my own knowledge. The source is someone who worked at the U.S. consulate in Shanghai for 15 years and still has many close ties on the inside. What happened? It all started when Catherine Werner, who worked at the U.S. consulate in Guangzhou, began reporting symptoms from late 2017 to early 2018. Her head and brain were seemingly affected by something that caused pains, aches, and other disruptions. This went on for a while until she outspokenly claimed that it was a sonic sickness originating from Chinese government bugs being planted in her surroundings for surveillance. Subsequently, more people from the Guangzhou U.S. consulate reported similar signs of illness and jumped in on the accusations towards these supposed sonic waves. As the allegations spread and grew in popularity, there was even one individual from the U.S. consulate in Shanghai who felt identical sensations. What's the truth? According to my source, personal friends/colleagues/acquaintances of Catherine described her as a troubled person prior to this event. She had previously already been perceived as sensitive, stubborn, difficult, and uncooperative at work. In addition, bugs planted by the Chinese government are extremely common in political work environments such as the U.S. consulate. This practice is completely normalized, and my source does not believe that it would cause any of these problems. My source thinks that this was simply a case of mass hysteria and paranoia. But why? When covering the incident, the media mentions Cuba. Apparently, There were cases of US diplomats who fell ill there that are reminiscent of this sonic sickness in China. A theory or possibility could be that people simply heard or read about that and manifested these ailments onto themselves, like the placebo effect. Personally, I lean towards this answer, sorry if that makes my retelling biased. However, this doesn't fully explain the seemingly real physical impact that plagued all of them around the same time. It definitely wasn't a contagious flu. This somewhat reminds me of periods in history like the Salem witch trials, although obviously not to such an intense degree. Yet, whether it was just a psychological invention/imagination or if government bugs were actually making people sick remains an unresolved mystery. If this story interests you, I recommend Googling keywords such as Guangzhou U.S. consulate sickness/illness and reading up on the articles written about this. New York Times article. This happened when I was 12, from the title. My cousin had to help his mother at a shop and since I liked spending time with him, I went along. His mom did all the work and we just sat in the room with the security cameras and messed around when a middle-aged lady, who from this point forward shall be known as Karen, K. Excuse me, why were you just in there? That says staff only. See cousin, my mom works here and she lets us. K. She lets you work here? Me, no, we are clearly too young. K. You don't have to cover for her, you know you can call the police? See, we don't work here. She then just gave up and left. I know this was short but I felt like it belonged here. Hi all. I've worked in customer service for a utility company in my state for about 3 years. I stayed this long because it pays pretty good even though I was constantly stressed. Something in my mind clicked last month that I'm worth more than this. I have a degree in accounting, originally wanted to get into the accounting department here. No luck moving up. Started a job hunt while still here in June. 1-2 hours vacation periods for interviews. Got a job offer in my field last Friday. Gave my notice yesterday. I have so much energy I haven't had in years I didn't know what to do with myself. It's actually quite amazing. I come here occasionally. Just wanted to let anyone know you're worth more, trust me. There's more to life than this job. Security isn't worth being miserable. Good luck to you all. There's brighter days ahead. Peace. Literally just happened few moments ago. So the wife was in the kitchen making a midnight snack while I was collecting the garbage bag out of the can not far behind her. She opened the fridge and bends over to get something out just as I asked if she could compress it. I know, I'm an idiot, so I patiently waited for her to stand up. You know that lull in the meeting, or the quiet moment after something embarrassing? Moments like this should not be given to me. Ever. My brain took the few seconds, assessed the situation, me looking at her from behind, and decided the best course of action. I like that boulder, that's a nice boulder. To which she stood up with a look on her face that immediately asked if that was my invitation for her to poison my food. She returned to making sandwiches, irony, shaking her head. Remember that moment I shouldn't have? I stated, cracking up. The wife and I have been together for almost 5 years, and while she may not be a size 0, she is nowhere near what you would be afraid of if she got on the elevator with you. She does, however, have an ass. One that I prefer the shape of. What the flip is so funny? I just had a thought of my family asking why you killed me, and you repeating that. And? The thought of her saying that and then my nerdy younger brother, who is on the internet more than me, and has a bigger problems with moments of silence than I do, saying, well you do have an absolute dump truck of an ass. Sent me into a fit that nearly spilled the bag. I have not necessarily paid the price for this yet, but I know what I'm in for. DL, Doctor quoted Donkey's memorable line while looked at my wife's dump truck of an ass. Edit, she found the post. Thought she was gonna hug me from behind. Instead she approached from behind to perform a death jutsu. Bartender at a local pizza joint. My buddy came in after a long day dealing with his 2 sick little girls. He tells me a story from today about the littlest. She's screaming for him from the bathroom. She states she's been waiting for 60 years for him. All she wanted was a cheese pizza from our place. Since they were sick he went with something more appropriate for upset stomachs. But you can guarantee I got him a gift certificate for a cheese pizza for her when she's better. Nice to have good customers to even out the bad ones, lol. I worked in housekeeping in a hotel for months up until this past week. I'm now 35 weeks pregnant. I was scheduled to work 5+ days a week, with 20+ rooms to myself. I came into work recently, because I was on the schedule, and I could barely walk. I couldn't bend my back and my ankles were hugely swollen. I had been in L&D the night before to stop contractions. We didn't have many rooms, but 5 housekeepers in-house. Everyone was almost begging my manager to send me home, as we had too many housekeepers for the amount of rooms. Now, I'm huge at this point in pregnancy. I can't bend too far forward in general. My manager and I, discussed a couple weeks ago that she didn't want me cleaning bathtubs, so I was to have another housekeeper come clean my bathtubs. No biggie, I was fine with that. Well, the day before I quit I had went to find another HK to help with a bathtub. Said manager stopped us in the hall and asked what we were doing socializing on the clock. We explained that she was going to clean a bathtub for me and would go right back to her rooms. She yelled at me and said that if I can't do my job, I need to quit so that she can hire someone who's willing to work. I explained that it wasn't that I wasn't willing to work, rather that's one small task that I myself struggle with accomplishing. She didn't care. She continued yelling at me. Now, I've always hated being yelled at, so I spent the rest of my shift crying while cleaning my rooms. I got home from work, still crying. My boyfriend became extremely upset as I told him what had happened. We decided that it's in the best interest of our child that I just be done, as it's a lot of emotional trouble as well as physical. So I gave my manager her wish, and I went in and handed in my scrubs and quit. She seemed sympathetic, said she understood, was sad to see me go, and for me to come talk to her after I was released from maternity leave. Fast forward to today, another HK at said hotel was talking to this manager, while recording the conversation to send to me. She asked if I would be back after baby. The manager told her that I was lazy and a crybaby so she would never consider hiring me back. I'm glad I quit. I feel like I dodged a bullet. I'm not sure that I'll ever be able to convince myself to work in housekeeping again. I was having dinner with my husband at this restaurant we had never been to. I ordered a fish trio. There would be, as the name suggests, 3 kinds of fish in an unexpectedly large salad. As waiters do, they came to ask how it was after a few minutes and I said that it was fine. Digging around in my salad however, I found that there were only 2 kinds of fish, so when the waiter came to collect the empty plates, I told her that. I didn't even mean anything by that, just wanted to let them know. She said, "Wait, let me speak to the chef." Then came back and proceeded to tell me that I had said that it was fine when she came and asked earlier, so they couldn't give me the missing piece of fish. I shouldn't have said it was fine and I wouldn't be getting my money back. I hadn't asked for anything and felt completely weirded out. Needless to say, I'll not be going back there. This is kind of a quick little story. This takes place back in the 90s when my tiny town still had a mall. The buses would pull up outside the doors, and there were benches inside by the plate glass windows to sit and wait out of the weather. Now our mall wasn't very big, but it had the usual 90s shops along with a pub and a lotto booth. Very cosmopolitan, haha. These play into my tale of the neckbeard. I was sat on one of the benches late one night, waiting for the last bus to take me home. The mall was closing and only the lotto booth and pub were still open. I had a bottle of pop, and my book, so I was perfectly content in my little corner. Until the neckbeard appeared. He shuffled over and plonked himself down beside me. He was large. His clothes were rumpled and hanging off him. Hair and beard a mess and the B.O. show. He stared at me for a moment or two. I moved to the end of the bench, keeping an eye out for my bus. He moved closer and pulled out a crumpled pack of cigarettes and held the pack out towards me. "Beard boy, you wanna smoke?" Me, barely glancing up from my book, clearly signaling go away, "I don't smoke." Beard boy, looking around for inspiration, "You wanna go to the pub and get a beer? You're really pretty." Me, "I don't drink." Beard boy, clearly growing frustrated, spies the lotto booth, "Can I buy you some scratch tickets?" Me, "I don't gamble." Beard boy, now red in the face from rage and apparent disappointment, "You don't smoke, you don't drink and you don't gamble. What do you do?" Me, "Avoid people like you." Stood up and walked out to get on my bus, leaving him seething. Me, 1, beard boy, 0. So my best friend isn't fully a Kavina but definitely has her moments. Around Christmas time we were on the phone and talking about what our plans were for Christmas. What we were getting people, our decoration plans, and what we were going to cook. The conversation went like this. Me, "I think I might make a pumpkin pie from scratch." Kavina, "Oh my god, do not do that." Me, very confused, "Why not?" Kavina, "I made one for Thanksgiving, it takes so long to make it. It's not worth it at all." Me, "What? No it doesn't, I've made it before, maybe 2 hours at the most 3. Kavina, You're lying or you used pumpkin out of a can because that's impossible. Me, confused again how? Kavina, it takes like 8 hours just to bake the pumpkin to get it to be soft enough to scoop out. Me, what? No it doesn't, it only take lick. In the middle of me talking I realized what she did. Me, Kavina, what kind of pumpkin did you use? Kavina, what do you mean? I used a pumpkin. Me, yes. But was it a carving pumpkin or a pumpkin pie pumpkin? Kavina, there is a difference? So what she did was she went out bought a huge carving pumpkin. Cut it in half. Baked it for 8 to 10 hours and made 5 disgusting diluted pies with it instead of 2. Not at any point in those 12 hours did she question if she was doing it correctly. Use Google to see why it was taking so long. Reread the recipe. Or call me and ask if I made one before and if that is normal.